Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Forum's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Ullman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. We're on the road to the Kentucky Derby and we've got a Kentucky Derby prep race for you. DRF handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier and I will take a look at the DRF Bet Saturday race of the day, the Fountain of Youth, the Grade 2 from Gulfstream Park. We also have two Kentucky Oaks preps to discuss. The Devona Dale also at Gulfstream, the Santa Isabel at Santa Anita. David Aragona's TimeformUS Spotlight is the Fountain of Youth. JK's Play of the Day, a Gulfstream Park Pick 3. Nicole Russo's Pedigree pick focuses on pedigrees in the Santa Isabel Stakes, plus horses to watch, best bets, Peter Thomas Fornatel's tournament talk, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Mike Beard, Naira analyst, you've got something at the Big A.
Have another one of my old favorites from last year. It was an early season 3-year-old. He was pretty good last year. First or second in 4 of his 6 starts last year. He handled turf. He handled dirt. Unfortunately, his season was over before we got to June. He returned from a layoff last Sunday at the Big A, and this is his first start off that big long layoff. He was off the pace early, but he was always traveling from off the pace over this sloppy track, and he just finished his best to run this field down at the end. Off of this race, he was claimed by Brad Cox, and I have to agree with this claim by Brad Cox. I think this horse has a little bit of a future and still has some upside. I think this horse is going to win some races for Brad Cox in the very near future, and he can do it on either surface, guys.
Matt, we're always looking for a good 3-year-old this time of year. You might have found one at Sunland Park of all places.
I don't know if he's going to stack up with the big boys just yet, the McKinseys and the Solomini's and the Good Magics of the world. But Reride, I thought he did a lot of running most recently. This was last Sunday in the Mind That Bird Derby at Sunland Park. You would imagine he's going to stay home for the Sunland Park Derby here in a few weeks, but you see the fractions. Don't take those at face value because they were slower than that. But the fact of the matter is he took some heat throughout. He went on and he turned away a nice horse and Runaway Ghost. Reride's 4 or 5 lifetime. He really hasn't done anything wrong. That only loss came in the Kentucky Jockey Club last year. And he took a little bit of a layoff, came back, ran well at Delta, came back, ran well there at Sunland Park. Again, I don't know if he's a superstar, but he hasn't really done a heck of a lot wrong. And Steve Asmussen, Winchell Thoroughbreds, you could do worse.
I'm going to go to Oaklawn Park for my horse watch. Mythical Tale made his first start for trainer Brad Cox on February the 16th at Oaklawn Park. And I thought that day a good track. There's been a lot of rain at Oaklawn this winter. I thought that track favored horses on the lead and especially horses that raced on or near the rail. Let's turn into the stretch of that race and you'll see Mythical Tale. Gary Stevens had no choice. He broke from an outside post position. This horse was chasing 3-4 paths off the rail, and the horse on the rail was able to make the lead from the start, and that's a pretty sharp horse as well. That's Okie Diva, who's going to be one of the main contenders in the stake at Oaklawn on Saturday, and has just been winning races left and right. Mythical Tale tries really hard after that wide trip to finish third. It was her first start of the year. She has always showed potential in longer distance sprint races for other trainers. She's got a bit of a pedigree to stretch out, and I think Brad Cox is going to find a spot either in an optional claiming or lower level stakes race down the road. Mythical Tale against the bias. Keep an eye out for horses that were outside at Oaklawn on February the 16th. Let's get to some handicapping. Let's get to a Derby prep, the Fountain of Youth. Let's take a look at the field for Saturday's DRF Bets Race of the Day. It's the Grade 2 $400,000 Fountain of Youth Stakes for 3-year-olds at 1 1/16 for free formulator pass performances for this race. Please head on over to the Race of the Day event page on DRF.com, and for expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races all weekend long, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. The story of this race is it's the seasonal debut for 2-year-old champion and 2017 Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner Good Magic. We'll get to him in a minute, but this is an interesting race from a pace dynamic, Mike, because you got a very fast stretch-out sprinter, and this horse is undefeated. Can he get the distance?
Yeah, strike power. I guess that's the real question with him. Do you think he'll go this far? I think if, just based on his pedigree, he's supposed to be able to stretch out at least 1 1/16. We'll see if he can do it in the Fountain of Youth at the first time around 2 turns. He's 2 for 2 in his career. His most recent win is the Grade 3 Swell when they stepped him up off a big maiden win. 102 buyer when he won first time out. He regresses to an 87 here, but this race was never in doubt. He got right to the front. He ran this field right out of the race, and he stays clear through the stretch. He's on his wrong lead the entire way. Can he win this race? I suppose that he can, guys. Does he have talent? I think he does have talent. For me, he was the first horse I tossed as the 4-1 second choice on the morning line.
Matt, the 2 is Free Drop Billy. This horse has a recent race. He's got that as an edge over Good Magic. And I thought he ran really well against the Todd Pletcher-trained runner Audible in his first start of the year.
I agree with you 100%. We're going to take the Holy Bull right now. I thought it was a winning effort. I understand Audible pulled away from him down the lane, but Free Drop Billy ranged up to him, almost kind of got even terms, and unfortunately it's Gulfstream Pletcher, and he just drew away from him. But all things considered, he was a country mile back from second to third place. I think he's going to take a step forward in the second start off the bench, and he might be a playable number with Good Magic in here.
This race is like the out-of-the-gate horse watch derby. He takes charge, one of Mike's horse watches. Free Drop Billy, one of mine. We even peppered in here, who was a horse watch from way back when. But they're all going to have him nailed on tight, Mike, to take down Good Magic.
Yeah, it just feels like this horse is coming back in a pretty good spot. Listen, it's not like he's just going to be able to show up off the layoff and sort of sleepwalk through this race. There's some other good horses in here, but just, you know, he's one of those horses who his first 2 starts, even though he didn't win them, he felt like he had a ton of potential. And then just based off what he did in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I mean, he just took a huge step forward in this race. And yes, he got a good trip in this race, but he just flat overpowered a good horse in Solimini and ran away with a big figure. I don't know, man. If he comes back even close to the horse that we saw back in November, they're going to have him nailed on tight in this race.
I agree, and he's going to be a short price in this race, deservedly so, off what we saw in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And I guess, you know, you always have to worry a little bit about horses coming back off layoffs, especially champions taking the first step. This, of course, not the goal. The goal is the first Saturday in May in the Kentucky Derby. But I kind of agree with Mike. From a talent perspective, I've been very, very impressed with Good Magic. I think he gets through this. It's a good starting off point for his 3-year-old campaign. And I think Matt's top selection, Free Drop Billy, makes a lot of sense as well. That would be my cold exacta. And I'd also use Free Drop Billy a little bit in multiple race wagers. Nicole Russo's Pedigree pick segment this week focuses on the Santa Isabel Stakes, a Kentucky Oaks prep out in Southern California. And then we've got Peter Thomas Fornatel's Tourney Talk segment. He's going to talk about all the latest happenings on DRF tournaments. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey guys, Nicole Russo coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky for Out of the Gate. A busy weekend of Kentucky Oaks preps on tap, led by this race, the Grade 3 Santa Isabel out in California. Now, if you've been following our Oaks countdown, you know that this race features a rematch between our leader in the clubhouse, the unbeaten Dream Tree, and Midnight Basue, who has given her rival all she can handle in their 2 meetings. Colleague Joe Nevels and I have done some in-depth pedigree analysis of those 2 with the episodes available at video.drf.com. So today I want to take a look at a couple of the others stepping up to challenge the top 2. We'll start with Spring Lily, who is coming off of this maiden win sprinting for John Sheriff, leading throughout and pouring it on in the lane. Earned a buyer speed figure of 88. That's actually better than Dream Tree's lifetime best of 86 and just a tick behind Midnight Basue's career high 89 last out. Spring Lily is by the young Belmont Stakes winning sire Union Rag, sire of 2-turn Grade 1 winners like Paradise Woods, Free Drop Billy. Certainly bodes well for her as she tries to stretch out for the first time. She's out of the Bertrando mare Taro, who never missed the board in her brief career. Stakes placed at 7 furlongs. Taro won up to 1 1/16 on synthetic and was a close second in her only try by 9 furlongs, that being on the turf. There's actually a lot of turf in this family. Taro's a full sister to Librarian Freighter, a multiple Grade 2 winner on the lawn. And the extended pedigree of the terrific Darby Dan family, responsible for Grade 1 winner and producer Memories of Silver, among others. I'm really excited to see this filly develop in the hands of Sheriffs. I do think she's got the tools to go 2 turns, but if she falls short, we know she's very fast sprinting. And there's a lot of turf in her pedigree to open those doors for her in the future. Union Rag's also a bit of a hidden turf sire, in my opinion, in addition to what's in her female family. Whatever she does Saturday, circle this one on your horses to watch list. I also want to take a quick look at 13 Squared, very well-bred maiden winner at a mile before fading to 4th after setting pace in the Las Virgenes against Dream Tree last out. 13 squared from the first crop of Liaison, a son of Indian Charlie, who of course has sons out there, including Uncle Mo. It's a very athletic line that I'm fond of. Liaison got a terrific book of mares early on. Some members of the bloodstock community seem to really believe in him. 13 squared is herself out of House of Fortune, a multiple grade 2 winner who earned just shy of $1 million. Kind of a light resume as a broodmare to date, but 2 of her 3 winners have won at a mile or longer. The race shape might play against 13 squared a little, plenty of speed in this race, but I do think this is an interesting filly moving forward as well. That's all from me this week on Out of the Gate. Now let's get you over to Peter Thomas Fornatale for some tournament talk.
Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you Out of the Gate to talk about what else? Tournaments. We got a lot of cool stuff happening this weekend on DRFT, highlighted by a couple of last chance contests next weekend. Big stuff going on from coast to coast. On Sunday, March 11th, Santa Anita and Gulfstream will be co-hosting the Stronach Group Ultimate Betting Challenge, become a very popular coast-to-coast event in the last few years, trying it out on a Sunday this year so as not to conflict with the Horse Player World Series, which will be going on from the 8th to the 10th in Las Vegas. You have an opportunity to win in to the Stronach Group Ultimate Betting Challenge one more time on DRF Tournaments this weekend. For players looking to get involved at a lower price point, there is a $60 last chance qualifier to the Saturday, March 10th Gotham Day tournament. That's a $500 live bankroll event. I would recommend it for East Coast oriented players. I'd recommend it for players looking to dip their toe into the pool of live bankroll play. Good way to get started and then move on up the ladder. We've got 2 chances, Saturday and Sunday, to win into one of the most popular contests of the entire year, Keeneland's Grade 1 Gamble. That event costs $350, limited to 10 entries. The winner will go ahead and receive his or her buy-in for the Keeneland Grade 1 Gamble. I also want folks to keep an eye out this weekend. Some cool new stuff happening on DRFT. Going to be starting qualifiers for NYRA's Wood Day contest. And most important of all, the Santa Anita World Horse Player Tour Preakness Challenge. Feeders are beginning this weekend. This is an all-new contest. All the prize money is added. It's going to be filmed for a television pilot that I'm proud to be involved in. You're going to want to check it out. There'll be a lot more information to come about this Preakness betting challenge, Santa Anita World Horse Player Tour. But you can look for the first feeders this weekend on DRF Tournaments, which, of course, you can find tournaments.drf.com. That's all I've got for this week. Stay tuned for more Out of the Gate right after this.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the Kentucky Oaks Prep Race at Gulfstream on Saturday. It's the Grade 2 Devona Dale, carded as race number 8. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt Shug McGahee looks like he's got a very promising 3-year-old filly. The 8 Flies So High, even money on the morning line.
Yeah, even money seems a little bit overboard, but at the same time, if you're a figure player, she is strictly the horse to beat. We're going to go back and take a look at that victory most recently. This was in a non-winners of one other than, and you see she's out there right now. I have to be honest, when she rolled up on the far turn, I thought she was going to win by 100. She only won by 5. But I don't know. There's just something about it, guys. At 1-5, this was not the most inspiring effort to me. She's going to need to run just as good from a speed figure standpoint as she did in this race to win. I'm just not convinced that at even money, I don't want to have any part of her.
Well, that's the best thing going for right now is the figs. The last two figs, both at one-turn miles, resulting in large margin victories. I mean, her figures, that's a big edge over this field. Mike, though, I know you've been waiting for Cash to come back. You made her an out-of-the-gate horse watch following her debut. This is the right spot?
Yeah, I guess it is. We'll see what happens with her. I don't know if I wouldn't have rather that she had another race in between before they jumped her into a graded stake. But, you know, based on her debut, she looks like she has a little ability. They paid a lot of money for her. We can show the debut run now. I mean, she had a little trouble at the start of this race. You're going to see her get bumped and wind up at the back of the field. I like the way that she was able to recover, though, pretty quickly and get herself into a really nice trip in this race. She just looked really professional through the early stages of this race for a first-time starter. She has a pedigree to stretch out, so I'm not that worried about the mile. And while I really do greatly respect Fly So High, and I'm not looking to take a big stand against her in this race, I do want to try Cash because I think she's talented. She's going to move to the outside here and come take this race over. Matt, it's at this point of the race where she's finally going to start looking like a first-time starter. But I still like the way that she ran, and I'm hopeful that she can get the mile. And I know that you kind of agree with me here.
This is my only concern, is you're going to see right now everything looks beautiful. The minute Javier shows her the stick on both sides, that's when she's going to start drifting about. You see she's going to duck out to the outside, pop back to her left lead, drift in. My only concern is if we get into some sort of a pitched battle and Javier has to get into her, if she does that, I'm not sure that she's quite ready to beat a horse like Fly So High or a Take Charge Paula. But look, I think the sky is the limit. I think right now she has plenty of upside. If she moves forward, she's going to be tough.
She ran to that $500,000 sales price. She beat 3 next out winners, including one horse that came back to win by 5 lengths with an 81 Beyer speed figure. She's got all the promise in the world. I understand why Fly So High is the favorite, but my top pick in this race, the number 6 Take Charge Paula, she's got the credentials to be the favorite in this race. She has already won 4 stakes races. She's won her last 3, and she won at Gulfstream last time out, beating 3 of these horses. Let's go back to that race. The grade 3 forward gal, she was forward from the beginning. You see her drift a little bit wide, turning into the stretch. That's sultry coming from off of the pace. She stays on her left lead all the way down to the wire, but this was just yet another rock-solid effort for Take Charge Paula. The main concern is she really hasn't run a fast race. Her last 3 Beyer speed figures, 77, 76, 76. Those numbers pale in comparison to the ones that Fly So High has been putting up in her last 2 races. But I know she's going to be forward in here. She'll be prominent when the field turns into the stretch. She's battle tested. She's a little bit more professional than Cash. Maybe she doesn't have the upside of a Cash or Fly So High, but I expect a good performance. And 5-1 in the morning line, if she goes off near that price, I think she actually might be the value play in this race. Take Charge Paul is my pick. I'd also have to use a lot of Fly So High in the Devona Dale. Let's head on off to the West Coast now. The Santa Isabel's coming up next, a Kentucky Oaks prep as well. Here's the field for the feature race at Santa Anita on Saturday, a Kentucky Oaks prep. It's the Grade 3 Santa Isabel Stakes. $100,000 is the purse. The 3-year-old fillies are going 1 1/16 for expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend. Head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Gents, we're expecting some wet weather in Southern California this weekend. This could affect the race. Bob Baffert's not sure if he wants to run Dream Tree on a wet track, but Mike, if Dream Tree does run, all she does is win.
It's hard to poke any holes in her at this point. Let's see, it's Baffert. They paid $750,000 for her. She's an Uncle Mo. She's undefeated. She's already won a Grade 1. She's got 2 wins around 2 turns already. Here's her most recent one in the Las Virgenes. Good trip in this race. I think she came by a couple of horses around the turn who just aren't as good as she is, and she's going to get it done. I got to admit, I wasn't blown away with this win, but she did what she had to do, and she is a deserving favorite in this race. I don't know, for some reason, I don't like her as much as I feel like I should like her.
I think we all concur with that assessment, and there's certainly nothing wrong with Dream Tree. You listed all of her many attributes, but we're looking for alternatives. And Matt, I think you have the most intriguing sort of new face in here. It's a speedy filly trained by John Sheriffs.
Yeah, Spring Lily, I don't know if this is too much too soon for her. Her most recent win was her only win to date. It was a maiden win. We're going to take a look at that run right now. She was sprinting, going 6.5. Now we're going to stretch out to 2 turns, a mile and a 16th. But whenever you get speed out of a John Sheriff's trainee, it immediately catches my attention. And I like the way that she's finishing here. I don't know, the tail's a little bit awkward out there flailing around, but she draws off and she gallops out really, really well. It just kind of gives me the indication, or the thought anyway, that additional distance isn't a problem. She's by Union Rags. The interesting thing here too is if you don't love Dream Tree, I think Midnight Bisou is going to be able to handle the distance. But if for some reason you think that she's probably more sprinter than router, maybe the alternative is a horse like Spring Lily, who should be a decent price.
Spring Lily, I think, is the inside speed. The other Baffert horse in this race has speed, but I think Spring Lily should be sent out of there and try to control this race from the start. Mike, is the third time the charm for Midnight Bisou. She has taken on Dream Tree twice. She has lost both times, but she's lost both times by a hair each time.
Yeah, both of those races. I mean, certainly Dream Tree came out on top in both of them, but the finishes were so close. I don't see how you could really look at them and feel like Dream Tree has any kind of real advantage on Midnight Bisou. And at the end of the day, when you're comparing the last 2 races, and I realize that Midnight Bisou hasn't stretched out yet, but when you're comparing the last 2 races that these horses have run, I just much prefer Midnight Bisou's last race. I mean, the way that she powered through the stretch in this field just makes me feel like she took another step forward in this race. And I just feel like, and listen, maybe the distance will be the big equalizer, but I just feel like she might ultimately be the better horse than Dream Tree, and I'm taking her on top this time.
I agree. I love the way Midnight Bisou won this race. Mike Smith kept her well off of the rail. The pace was solid. She was close, and she still finished it off very, very nicely. It'll be interesting to see how far she wants to go down the road. I do think a mile and a 16th is within her scope. She has a versatile running style and can adapt to the pace situation. I'm hoping Dream Tree runs in here. It helps Midnight Bisou's price, obviously. I'll go with her. And Spring Lily, I think, will also run well in the Santa Isabel Stakes. JK's Play of the Day segment focuses on a Gulfstream Pick 3, and then David Aragona from TimeformUS spotlights the Fountain of Youth. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. We're going to head down to South Florida, Fountain of Youth Day, getting ready for the Kentucky Derby. It's only a couple months away from us here. I'm going to give you a pick 3. Now, some of you guys are pick 4 players. I invite you to take a look at the workout report and include the first leg of the pick 4, which is it's a maiden race. I didn't really have a strong opinion there. The workout report, it's not out yet, would skew me one way or the other. So I'm going to just give you the pick 3, and you can go from there. Starting in the first leg, the Gulfstream Park Sprint Championship, I'm going to use 2 horses in here. I'm going to use the 6 Favorable Outcome off of his effort in the Malibu. You know, take note that this distance is 6.5. I think 6.5 is one of those distances in racing that probably favors closers more than any other spot. There seems to be a lot of speed signed on here if you take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector, and I like Favorable Outcome. Newly turned 4-year-old, ran well, like I said, in the Malibu out in California to wrap up the year. I think he's going to be tough in this spot. And then I'm also going to use Mr. Jordan on the cutback. Okay, a little bit of these cutback horses cutting back to 6.5. I should get that finish from him, closing into, like I said, what feels like it could be a really honest pace. I'm going to just use those 2 as my horses to pick up pieces late in the 6.5 grade 3, 6.5 furlong grade 3. Going on to the second leg, I'm going to use 4 horses here. I'm going to use the 1 Sadler's Joy, the 7 Benet, the 9 Nessie, and the 12 Oscar nominated. We've talked about it on the Players Podcast quite a bit. When Mike Maker runs a horse long on the grass, you got to pay attention. I think Sadler's Joy is the classiest of those. I thought he had a little bit of a chance in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Yes, he's in off a 119-day layoff, but I think being drawn down inside, this old professional should be put into the race a little bit more than usual, and I think he should be in a great spot. A little bit of a spread here using those 4 horses, but I think it'll get us alive to my single. And the last, and the Fountain of Youth, the 14th race of the day at Gulfstream for 3-year-olds, going a mile and a 16th on the dirt. I love Good Magic in this spot. We talk about it all the time with these 2-year-olds turning 3-year-olds. As a 2-year-old, Good Magic ran a 118 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That's better than anyone else in this field has run their entire life. Off of that long break, off the natural progression that you could see from these types of horses, from 2 to 3. I would expect him to run even a bigger number in the 120s, and I think that'll be good enough to get the job done here. It's also important to note, I remember last week in the DRF workout report, Good Magic was working with another Chad Brown trainee that won a grade 3 as an older horse. I think Good Magic is going to be tough in here, ready to rock and roll. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hi, this is David Aragona for this week's TimeformUS Spotlight. We're going to be taking a look at the 14th race at Gulfstream on Saturday. It's the Fountain of Youth for 3-year-olds going a mile and a 16th. This race obviously features the return of last year's 2-year-old champion and Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, Good Magic. He's the big name in this spot, but let's take a look at the entire field. One of the things you notice when you take a look at the TimeformUS preview screen is that there's quite a bit of speed in this race. Scanning down the list of running styles, there are 2 horses with running styles labeled speed, 2 horses labeled leader. Generally, that means we're going to have a fast pace, and taking a look at the TimeformUS pace projector, that's indeed what is predicted. There are 3 horses that are going to be going out for the lead in here. The one that's going to attract the most attention is the number 4 horse, Strike Power. But the number 9, Machismo, is also stretching out from sprint distances. And the number 10 horse, Promises Fulfilled, while he's gone long before, he's been on the lead in all of his starts. So his best hope, you would think, is to head out towards the front. Something's going to have to give on the front end because all of these horses are going to be gunning for the lead. So perhaps that sets it up for a closer. That shouldn't affect Good Magic too negatively. He's the number 6 horse in this race. He should be able to just kind of slot in behind those speed horses. And taking a look at his past performances, just based on everything the TimeformUS PPs are telling us, this horse is going to be awfully tough to beat in this spot. As a 2-year-old, he was earning speed figures that are faster than some of the horses that have been running at 3 years old. The 118 TimeformUS speed figure that he earned in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is the highest number that anybody in this race has earned. Just watching back that race, he was really powerful that day. I know that perhaps Bolt Doro had a tougher trip than him, but Good Magic just kind of exploded when he got into the clear at the top of the stretch, was a really dominant winner. And he's going to be awfully tough to beat in this spot. Chad Brown has good numbers with just about every type of runner, and you can see coming off layoffs of this type, he gets a 100 trainer rating. He gets a 100 trainer rating overall from TimeformUS. He just does everything quite well, and Good Magic's been working strongly. That's what all reports are saying. So he's going to be awfully tough to beat in this spot. I'm not one that loves to endorse favorites, but I think this horse is one that you have to respect. Another horse that's likely to take money in this race is Free Drop Billy, coming off a 2nd place finish in the Holy Bull last time out. Now, the big question that Free Drop Billy had to answer that race was, can he finally run a faster race? Because while he had done well as a 2-year-old and even won a grade 1 in the Breeders' Futurity, he hadn't run really fast speed figures. And I think he answered that question by running a 113 TimeformUS speed figure. He lost to Audible by 5.5 lengths, but Audible just put forth a freakish performance that day, really exploding in the final 1/8 of the mile. And Free Drop Billy finished well clear of the rest of the field, over 7 lengths clear of Tis Mischief and Enticed, who are coming out of that Kentucky Jockey Club. I think Free Drop Billy, based on that performance, is the other horse you want in this race. Also, while he raced closer to the pace in the Holy Bull, he's one that had been very effective coming from farther back off the pace as a 2-year-old. So the fast pace of this race should allow him to revert to that running style coming from further back in the pack. And I think he's just another really solid contender in this race. Both of these horses are going to be pretty tough to take down. The other one that's likely to take money in this spot, and I think is one of these loved or hated horses, is Strike Power, who's coming off a win in the Swale Stakes last month. Now, he's undefeated. He's won both of his starts by open lengths, leading all the way. He's run speed figures that suggest he's just as fast as Good Magic and Free Drop Billy. The question for him is, can he stretch his speed out to go the route distance? And I think that's a real question because looking at his debut, he was allowed to set a pretty slow pace going 5.5 furlongs. The blue color-coded pace figures indicate that it was a fairly uncompetitive pace. And then last time out, while the pace is in color-coded blue, just watching back that race, the other speeds in that race didn't really send, and they just kind of allowed Strike Power to inherit a pretty easy lead while he was running, honest fractions. It's going to be a totally different situation today because you have the speed horses like Machismo and Promises Fulfilled gunning from the outside. I think it's a tougher situation for Strike Power to get out to the front. And looking at Mark Henig's stats with horses stretching out in distance, it's just not his strongest move. He gets a 63 overall TimeformUS trainer rating, but horses going sprint to route, and especially trying route for the first time, he just gets a 37 trainer rating. Just not the best move for this barn. And with a horse that's going to be a relatively short price, he's the 2nd choice on the morning line. I think he's perhaps one we can take a shot against. If we're looking for a little bit of value in this race, since we respect Good Magic and Free Drop Billy, one horse that you might want to try to get into the trifecta is He Takes Charge. Given the likelihood of a fast pace in this race, He Takes Charge feels like a horse that could really benefit from the fast pace. I know he's run a little bit slower and he's coming out of maiden races. This is a huge step up in class, but this is a horse that clearly possesses a lot of talent. Mark Hasse has been very high on this horse all along, and I think he just started to really put things together last time out when you watch that race. That was not a race where a lot of horses were closing from off the pace. Slot, the second place finisher, opened up a sizable gap around the far turn, and He Takes Charge really kicked it into high gear and came and ran by that horse. And while he only won the race by 2 1/4 lengths, you could see he just kind of pulled himself up when he made the lead, and he would have won by a lot more if he had had something to run at. In this race, he's drawn on the rail, which is a good post position for this mile and the 16th configuration. Tyler Gaffalione can just kind of settle towards the back of the pack and make one run. It might be asking a lot of a horse who's pretty inexperienced against winners, but I think he's one that could work his way into the mix because he does possess a lot of talent. So I think Good Magic and Fruit Drop Billy are the two you want to focus on. They're going to be pretty formidable, but maybe we can work He Takes Charge into the trifecta here. So that's how it looks for me in the Fountain of Youth. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Time for our Best Bet segment. Mike Beer, Naira analyst, you have something at Aqueduct on Saturday.
I'm going to get you out of here early, race number 2 to complete your early double. Pray for Bourbon is number 2 in this race. I think if you just look at her on paper, her most recent start, her buyer regressed about 6 points, or about 8 points in that race. She lost ground in the stretch. It might look like she took a step backward. You would be wrong about that. Let's put up the video of her most recent start. She got bumped at the start to wind up last. She had to make a big 3-wide run around the turn. What you need to keep in mind about this day, January 26th at Aqueduct, the strongest gold rail that we've seen at Aqueduct the entire meet. The horse that wins the race, Daring Prospect, right on the lead on the rail. This horse, Pray for Bourbon, took a big run at this horse, couldn't get by her at the end, and she's ultimately going to lose out second. But she actually ran, at the very least, the second best race in this day while against the track. She was in good form prior to that race, and I think she's going to rebound on Saturday.
Matt, 9 stakes races, 8 graded at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. It's a super card. You've got one in one of the undercard stakes races.
Yeah, race number 6, 3-year-olds on the turf, the Palm Beach. I like the number 7 horse, Hawkish, for Jimmy Toner. We're going to take a look at his only career start to date. This was the first time out. See him in the red cap out there. The thing to keep in mind, he's going to be a little bit green down the lane. You're going to see him swap leads. But the way that this race was run, you look at the fractions, TimeformUS had those internal splits all color-coded blue, and he's the only horse making up any ground right now. He's actually going to be in hand at the very end, just shy of the wire. I thought it was a really strong effort. The problem is now he's going to get a very similar pace scenario he has to deal with. The problem is they're going to be much better horses. Speed Franco is going to be tough to run down, but Hawkish looks like he's got a world of ability, and he might be a decent number.
No stakes races at Mahoning Valley on Saturday, but I really do like a horse here. The advantage of these cards drawing early is I get to have a jump on them during the week. And in race number 5, Jilly from Jersey is the number 5. And let's go back to Jilly from Jersey's most recent start. This is a very consistent filly. She has been in the trifecta 15 of 19. And last time it was her first start off a little bit of a layoff, and she was sort of down in behind horses on the turn. She angled out to split at the top of the stretch, and she finishes evenly, earning a career best 64 Beyer speed figure. This race at 6 furlongs. The speedster that she's going to have to run down on Saturday tired very badly at 5.5 furlongs. That horse is likely to blast out to the lead again, but I don't think she can stay. Jilly from Jersey, second start back, and sit just from off the pace, 5-1 on the morning line. Jilly from Jersey, the ultimate wise guy play in race number 5 at Mahoning Valley. Please follow the latest DRF TV offerings at DRF Video on Twitter. From the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Forum, please follow at DRF Inside Post. Thanks for tuning in this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.